Good morning. I have returned. Good morning, I am Stephanie, and I am today's worship associate. I'm a seasonal worship associate, so you only see me up here about maybe once or twice a year. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster. Wednesday was Lori, a popular Sikh and Hindu festival, especially in northern India. Tomorrow will be Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Here at UUCL, we come together to nourish the spirit, connect in love, and act for justice. We welcome you this morning just as you are, whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, however you identify. Today, you are part of this spiritual community. And if this is your first time here, may you soon discover this is also your spiritual community. As has become our custom, let us give a special welcome to those joining us in Zoom. I invite those on Zoom to turn on your camera and share a wave together. And everyone in this sanctuary, let's wave at the camera, back at the sanctuary to send our greetings. We welcome all ages in the sanctuary today. Our playroom in the adjoining building is open for children ages 4 and younger. There's also a table with activities for busy hands of all ages. I would also like to welcome you this morning and invite everyone to take a moment to consider this sacred space that we are now in and acknowledge the truth of the land beneath and around us. We are gathered on land once inhabited by people known as the Susquehannock and the Conestoga and the ancient peoples before them. We acknowledge the violent legacies of genocide, displacement, and settlement that led us to being here today, and remind ourselves to live humbly in relation with this land and with all of the indigenous people still living and loving on this continent. May we also acknowledge that the wealth and foundation of the United States was built upon the labor and toil of enslaved people. Many indigenous people will say all are relatives. May we live into this truth and aspiration together. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Heather Guerin Rice, a UU ministerial candidate and chaplain.
Good morning. And Steph is going to light our chalice with these words by Gregory Pelly. And so we gather from the ebb and flow of our lives, thirsty for connection to ourselves, thirsty for connections to others, thirsty for connection to the larger life. As we light this chalice, may all who gather here be filled. Tides go rolling by in our gray hymnal. This is a new one with some very beautiful words. So I'm just going to read the first verse to you. Where gentle tides go rolling by along the salt sea's strand, the colors blend and roll as one together in the sand. And often do the winds entwine to send their distant call, the quiet joys of humankind when love embraces all.
No. Since Eli is sick today, and he could not possibly be replaced by one person, you get a 2-for-1. Jean and I both attempting to be Eli. And since this is a new hymn, Alan is going to play one verse first. share, where love embraces all. But we have come to plow the tides, the oat lies on the ground. I hear their fires in the field, they drive the stallion down. The roses bloom, as bright and dark, the winds do seldom stall. The running sands recall the time when love embraces all.
Now's the time when those who are children in spirit or age are welcome to come up and think about water with me. So if you would like to come up, we have some pictures today, and there's something hiding in the Wonder Box, and I need some help to get it out. Anybody want to help? Can use a couple people. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So this is a big one, okay? You ready? You want to see what's in here? Oh, yeah, you might need some, what is, no, that one, I think that one we're going to leave in here. I think that was a mistake to leave that one.
The strongest member of UUC out.
Woo! So for those of you who didn't see what was in the Wonder Box, it is a 2.5-gallon jug of water, full of water. And for those of you who don't know, and who are probably better at math than me, 1 gallon of water weighs 8.8 pounds. So that's a lot of weight. You know what? I had to carry that to church this morning. And I only had to walk 2 blocks, and I was tired. So up here, so how do you get water in your house? If you want a drink of water, what do? Do you ask somebody? And where does that somebody go to get the water? Do they go out in the backyard to something like that well and pull it up? They do. Or do they maybe go into the kitchen and turn on a tap, or maybe your refrigerator, and fill a glass to hand it to you? Does that sound about right? Well, you know what? If we can go to the next picture, there are some places where people don't have water that comes on with just the flick of a switch. So some places, people have to go to the river and pull the water out of the river. And then, so a lot of times it's the women or the kids who have to pull the water out. And I'm gonna guess that they can't just pick that water up and take a drink. I'm gonna guess they probably have to take it home and boil it for a little bit to make it safe. And I'm guessing that those jugs probably hold at least 2.5 gallons of water. And maybe if we can look at some of the other pictures. And so let's see, I can't do this, but maybe you can. Some of you older people might remember trying this. So some of you remember trying to walk with a book on your head? Can you do that? Stand up. Young in spirit, yes. You did better than I did. Whoa! Now that was a light book. So I guess what my point is a lot of places it's really hard to get water. And do you know what else is so what is the earth made of? Water, a lot of water. And what are our bodies made of? A and a little bit of other stuff mixed in. 70%, both the earth and our bodies, are water, about 30% of other stuff mixed in. So we have a couple more pictures up. I'm guessing that's India, and here are some of the kids carrying water on their heads. And a couple more, just to remember that there are different kinds of wells. And for a lot of people, getting water to drink every day is a really, really hard work. And I just wanted to remember that today, because I think we forget sometimes that our lives, even though they can be difficult, our lives are pretty easy in this country. Thank you for coming up and lifting that really heavy jug of water for me. I appreciate it. So you are welcome to go back to your seat, and I think we'll leave the water up here if that's okay. Thank you. If you would join me in a moment of prayer or meditation, just going to take a little time to listen to the silence we make together and to feel how that's different from the silence we make by ourselves. Great mystery, Spirit of all, you of many names and no name. Be with us today. This is a time when we come together to share our joys, to share our sorrows, and to share those complex truths that are both and neither at the same time. Steph is going to add some stones for a couple to share this morning. It's now officially been 100 days that there's been violence in Israel and Gaza. It's important that we remember that. We received word that Sheila Audette died earlier this week. We've been asked to remember those with COVID and the flu, including Eli, our music director, and wishes for good health and avoiding COVID and the flu for the rest of us. Jenny Campbell's older brother died last week after only a couple of days in hospice, and she has wonderful memories of Twinkies from him. And tomorrow is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and my favorite story is when Nichelle Nichols was told that somebody wanted to meet her, a Trekkie, and she turned around and it was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he looked at her and said, "My family sits down and watches your show." And she said, "Oh, well, I was going to quit." And he said, "You can't do that. because representation matters. And I think that's an important lesson for all of us that we sometimes forget when we're trying to be serious. I invite you, as you are able, in silence, to come forward and place a stone or a shell in the sand for whatever is on your heart or mind this morning.
From a professor of Heather's. It goes without saying that water is essential for survival. From the very beginning of human culture, it played a vital role in the abundance of crops, prosperity in agriculture, and the birth and flowering of civilizations. In Sanskrit, one meaning of the word jivan, life, is water. In other words, water equates life itself. Water is referred to as Javannam Sarav Javannam, meaning the entire world depends on water for survival. Water is an essential ingredient in rituals and ceremonies in all religious traditions of the world. Gujarat in Western India has been dry and arid from time immemorial. In response to the chronic water shortages, the inhabitants of this region developed strategies for harvesting, storing, and preserving the water from annual monsoons. For this purpose, wells, step wells, and other structures were built up in the 7th up until the 19th century. Step wells differed from the ordinary wells because they had steps leading down to the water and did not require ropes to draw the water. The step wells were a source of life-giving water, which enabled the land to become fertile and the crops to flourish. The step wells primarily served a utilitarian function. They also served a vital function as a gathering place for women. The step wells thus represent a unique form of architecture. An examination of these step wells constructed under the patronage of Hindu and Muslim dynasties reveals the unique attitude of religious tolerance. These step wells successfully transcend religious differences and sectarian conflicts. These step wells reflect women's agency and participation in art and architecture. They are expressions of women's unique sensibilities, their preeminent concerns, and their striving to challenge the notion that women's lives were insignificant, irrelevant, and doomed to oblivion. Through the patronage of stepwells, these women were demanding a place in the pages of history and vying for immortality.
And had I given that to her before yesterday, I'm sure the academic tome of all of it would have been easier to read. My apologies. Now and again, we preachers will revisit a sermon we've given before. For me, it never ends up being the same sermon. Life happens, the world keeps moving, and I'm not the person I was then. This particular topic was for a summer series, and I needed a title and blurb in May for a sermon in August. I submitted water, sacred and mundane. Water is sacred to religions around the world. The earth and our bodies are 70% water. We can only last 3 days without water. I love that we can find the sacred in the most mundane and secular that surrounds us. I pushed send and fully expected not to think about the sermon again until August. The next week, my college alumni magazine showed up, and I half-heartedly flipped through it. I went to a small women's college until I noticed a small announcement about the publication of a book about sacred stepwells. I had no idea what a stepwell was, but Dr. Bott was my environmental studies professor, proficient in history, anthropology, and interdisciplinary studies, with a delightful Indian accented English. I remembered her sharing stories about growing up in India, and that was enough for me to buy her book. I'm so grateful that I happened upon that announcement at the right time and place. This book was and continues to be a gift. One website explains, stepwells are literally as the name suggests, deep rock wells cut with steps leading down to them. They don't really sound terribly glamorous, but one look at any of the ancient stepwells and it shows that they're anything but ordinary wells. Built primarily for the purpose of retrieving water, the wells were also places of social gathering and worship, especially for women. Built several stories down, they provided respite from the harsh summers of semi and arid Western India and were cool and quiet retreats. I would argue that these sacred stepwells rival any European cathedral for beauty and craftsmanship. Bott states, while Hindu temples may have suffered destruction and desecration at the hands of fanatical Muslim invaders, most stepwells were apparently left untouched. This may be attributed to the utilitarian function these stepwells served, and that it was in the interest of the invaders to leave them alone to gain support from the local people. These stepwells provide a rare bit of evidence of women's participation in history, a permanent record of the names of those who sponsored the building, including women. 17 of them were sponsored by women. We hear the voices of those who are usually hidden, anonymous and silent. Carved into the walls are stories of the daily lives of the women who lived here. Their stories told in their choice of images, their words, not recreated from the remnants and shards of trash gleaned from the trash heap. The Sanskrit word for life, jivan, is also interpreted as water, and mani wichoni is a Lakota term usually translated as water is life. This phrase, mani wichoni, water is life, was the protest anthem for the April 2016 Standing Rock Reservation Dakota pipeline protests. The water has always been my home. In fact, not long ago, I got bored of starting bios with this is so-and-so from so-and-so, and she's done this, that, and the other. And I started with, I was born on the banks of the Susquehanna River because I was born at the Harrisburg Hospital, which is literally on the banks of the Susquehanna River. My introduction to swimming was a mommy and me class in the basement pool of the YWCA. I refused to hold on at 6 months, and the instructor assured my mother that I would only do that one time. She was wrong. I'm sure it won't be a surprise to those of you who've met me before that I love a challenge. McCaskey had synchronized swimming back in the day, and that remains one of my favorite high school memories. When I get to college, I
switched to competitive swimming, as one does. That's when I learned about open water swimming. A 4.4-mile swim at the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, sign me up! Mom and Doug, my now husband, bit their nails on the shore while my dad cheered me on as I took off from the beach that morning. It wasn't the swim I wanted. It was my first interaction with the Coast Guard, climbing aboard a small boat when I realized a limit and conceded that the current was stronger than I was. I doubted my recollection, so I looked it up. The 1991 Chesapeake Bay Bridge swim, the Baltimore Sun headline, Charity Bay swim averts disaster, ebbs to fiasco. Strong currents and weak safety plans bring shutdown and numerous rescues. In 2014, I just heard about the 1-mile Ocean Games swim along the shore in Ocean City, Maryland. I decided that was my goal for 2015. This time, Mom and Doug had an entire 11 months to fret. And now, with the advent of shark tracking, you can know when the sharks are along the Atlantic Ocean and just off the beach. My family shares a rather macabre sense of humor, so my response to the sharks was to watch old Shark Week videos and share all the information I could glean. That Saturday afternoon in 2015, long after the 3 and 9 mile swimmers had begun, I ran into the surf and dove into the waves, coming up with arms gracefully curving and swimming north. The rhythm of the stroke took over, and then beachgoers lined the sides as I walked up onto the shore and the finish line 42 minutes later. The transition from water to sand is a strange one. For a bit, you still feel tossed about by the waves. Then you regain your equilibrium, and you're once again a creature of the earth. That was an accomplishment. I swam a mile in the ocean. I wasn't last, and I was the swimmer I had remembered from being all those years ago. And about a month later, Ocean Games offered a discount for signups for the 2016 race, and because I'd completed the 1-mile race, I was now eligible to swim 3 miles. 2016 was quite a year. I spent months alternating between 2-hour and 2-mile swims. A waterproof iPod shuffle meant I could read while I was swimming, and I can accomplish just about anything if I can disappear into a book. In the midst of my training, on days when my arms had the tensile strength of a wet noodle and the water felt like Jell-O, I'd think about one of my sheroes, Diana Nyad. She's not quite a month older than my mom, and in September of 2013, the age of 64, and during her 5th attempt, she completed her challenge and swam 110 miles from Cuba to Key West. They just made a movie about it. Nyad, Annette Bening, plays Diana, and her best friend is played by Jodie Foster. Nyad discovered that she was good at swimming, and it provided a safe place for her, a refuge and haven from abuse. She talked about swimming with a lot of rage in her 20s. The water is strong enough to provide a safe place to vent frustration and rage. It doesn't take that long for the water to absorb your anger, and it's a crucible that transforms anger into strength. After one of her attempts, her comment was, "I only made it halfway." For me, her story exemplifies the intersection of sacred and secular, tenacity and the strength of call, and most importantly, the incredible healing power of water. Some of you know how that 3-mile swim ended for me. 2.5 miles into the swim, I hit my head. It took me a moment to realize that I shouldn't be hitting my head in the ocean. As I sat up, I noticed the prop wash from a boat and a cut on my hand. Long story short, the propeller on the boat cut 8 tendons, 7 nerves, and nicked the artery in my hand. The Atlantic General Hospital kept me alive, and several surgeons at the University of Maryland Shock Trauma put my hand back together. I've regained more use of my hand than they ever expected I would. And after that swim, I promised Mom that I wouldn't do any more open water swims. We went back to Ocean City, literally the scene of the crime, and I was able to differentiate between the sacredness of the ocean and the human-driven boat that so profoundly changed my life. Swimming and the water are still my happy and safe space. We are each the sum of our experiences and our learning. At some point in my learning about anti-racism, I learned the lesson that you don't just learn about racism. You choose an issue that matters to you, and you learn about how racism affects that issue. As I rediscovered swimming in the 20-teens, I decided to learn about swimming and privilege. It wasn't a surprise to me that swimming is a sport of privilege. It doesn't take much time around a pool to notice that there isn't much diversity. It was the magnitude of the systemic racism and privilege that shook me to my core. Those of an African American and Latinx heritage are 3 times more likely to drown than their white counterparts. It's a statistic that I share frequently and vocally whenever the opportunity arises. My perfectionist tendencies demanded that I get the statistics right. In 2015, only about 1% of competitive swimmers and 1.4% in 2019 identify as African American. Anthony Irwin in 2000 was the first African American Olympic swimmer with a gold and silver medal. Maritza Correa McClendon was the first African American woman to compete in swimming and earned a silver in the 2004 Olympics. Cullen Jones was a member of the 2008 USA Olympics team that won a gold medal in the freestyle relay with Michael Phelps. Cullen Jones was back in 2012, the first US Olympic team with more than one Black swimmer, 2012. He won a gold and 2 silver medals that time. And in 2015, at the NCAA Division I finals, 3 African American women took the podium for the first time. 100-meter race, gold, silver, and bronze. That was it. Simone Manuel won 4 medals in 2016. And that's about the extent of it. I revisited my research, and although the statistics haven't changed much, there's been a lot more conversation and work since 2015. USA Swimming actually names the problem in an article entitled, "Racial Disparities in Swimming, What Can We Do?" To quote, "There is an obvious racial disparity in our sport. Within the sport, there is continued evidence of both microaggressions and acts of overt racism against African American athletes. These severely unbalanced numbers are mostly due to the racism in swimming pools. During the 20th century and the rise of popularity of recreational swimming pools, there was severe discrimination against people and communities of color with access to pools and swimming lessons that has caused modern swimming disparities. In the early and mid-1900s, larger public pools were off limits to people of color, and by the late 20th century, private swim clubs became popular in the suburbs, creating a new recreational culture for white Americans. Contested Waters, A Social History of Swimming Pools in America by Jeff Wilst is a painful and necessary read to understand the depths of systemic racism and the cost. US communities would rather close pools than integrate. A 2006 article in the Lancaster New Era brings it right home. 3 local pools and their fight to remain segregated. One positive outcome from Rocky Springs' refusal to integrate its pool was the construction of what is now the Lancaster County pool that was open to everyone. Cullen Jones, that Olympic swimmer I was telling you about, he swam with Michael Phelps. He got swimming lessons after he almost drowned at Dorney Park. He's very clear, and he says, the stigma that Black people don't swim bothers me. I've been to the Olympics twice, and I don't float. He is tireless with the Make a Splash initiative to promote water safety. Diversity in Aquatics is another group that goes beyond the efforts to save lives, curb drownings, and promote aquatics as a healthy activity. We represent the diverse leadership reflective of the communities in which we serve. As a 100% volunteer-led member organization, we work together to promote water safety and drowning prevention education, focus on creating opportunities in aquatics, and addressing drowning disparities in BIPOC communities. We approach water safety and drowning prevention through the lens of social justice, education, and public health to address the impacts of race, socioeconomic circumstances, and cultural stereotyping that affect the communities in which we serve. The day after I preached this sermon in 2015, I showed up to open the pool at 5 a.m., as I did most mornings then. And toward the end of my shift, a young man was having a lot of fun and working really hard at swimming. One of my patrons looked at him and looked at me and said, he needs some swim lessons and some goggles and encouragement. My eyes were a bit sweaty as I shared that I'd preached about that only the day before. She went ahead and paid for his private lessons and his goggles. I don't know the rest of that story, but that was enough for me that day. We've been on a journey this morning. Sacred stepwells in India, the Chesapeake Bay, the Atlantic Ocean, the waters from Cuba to Florida, and 5 Olympics. I'm once again reminded how wonderfully tangled are the connection between sacred and secular aspects of water. It plays a role in many of the world's religions. Our daily lives are dependent upon the availability of clean and safe water. Lack of access is a death sentence. Social justice is an integral piece of my faith, and we have the opportunity to practice and live into our faith by example. In Sanskrit, Jivan, water, life. In Lakota, Mini Wachoni, water is life. May you find blessings of water as you move through your day. May it be so. Blessed be. And if you would rise in body or spirit for hymn number 44.
Bestowing rain.
This is the time in our service when we will pass the plate and accept your offerings. You may go to our website to make a donation online. A portion of the offering this month will be shared with the Benchmark program. Founded to transform the way our community's most vulnerable yet promising population is served, the underserved youth. Benchmark's gym, team, and scope of impact has expanded since its founding in 2014, but the core remains the same: to build our underserved youth into community leaders. While the plates are passed, I will make some announcements. The plates may now be passed. Do look to our weekly email newsletter, the Love Notes, for weekly need-to-knows and events at UUCL, as well as our Facebook page and website calendar. To sign up for the newsletter, look to our website or contact our office. There are many special events coming up this month. There will be a spirituality of making session today following the service, Learn to Crochet with Linda Snyder. Following the service next week, there will be a town hall regarding the ministry of UUCL, a very important discussion. Following the town hall will be a goddess gathering. Thursday evening, January 25th, there will be a Garvin lecture regarding Christian nationalism. We will be having a volunteer engagement fair at the end of the month. Sign-up information will be coming out this week. Dinner go-rounds will be starting again, where a small group of UUCLers meet for dinner in people's homes or here in our building. The music team is providing a Valentine's Day themed concert here at UUCL February 10th at 8 p.m. Alan will play 12 Chopin pieces, including several of his most famous works. All proceeds go to the music at UUCL and the charity that they're supporting in February. Singles, couples are encouraged to come. Everybody encouraged to come, singles, couples, everyone.
Whatever number.
Everybody. Poly, we accept it all. And
It's going to be at 7.
tiny pop quiz. Now, who noticed my shirt today? If you're new at UUCL, you don't have to participate, but love is at the center. Do we know what that refers to? Oh, it's snowing. Anybody? George? Article 2, y'all. Article 2. So for those of you who don't know, Unitarian Universalism, we're based on our principles and purposes. Every few years, us as a whole get together and discuss and update. Our current discussion is Article 2, which is where our 7 principles led. There's discussion of updating them, so keep an eye out. Reverend Pat and I will be doing some education on it. And the changing of the bylaws does not change UU, so keep that in mind. Now, next week, let us join together in singing civil rights songs and hearing the stories behind some of the songs. If you have a special story related to the civil rights songs, contact Reverend Pat. Musicians with civil rights songs in mind may contact Eli, our musical director. And now, let us join together and read in unison the affirmation of faith found in the gray hymnal and appear on our screen as well. We do that now. First in English and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia. El servicio es su ofrenda. Este es nuestro compacto. El convenir unidos en paz, el buscar la verdad en amor y ayudarnos unos a los otros.
These words from Kimberly Quinn Johnson. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we have been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart that new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we have been waiting for. And for our postlude, if you would stand in body or spirit in your teal hymnal, number 1064, Blue Boat Home.